Iowa State started the season 5-0, but after 4 straight losses, struggling to make a bowl game. What happened against Arizona?
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, Cyclone fans, and welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Nick Moravitz. Thank you for making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. We got a big show today. Lot to unpack, lot to break down after Iowa State's loss to Arizona State 24-19. It was an ugly one, all right? So we're going to take the first segment and kind of look at the game as a whole. What happened here? How did Iowa State manage to lose this one? Okay, I'll give my opinions on that. And then in the second segment, we're going to specifically look at the offense. 19 points doesn't feel like enough, especially when the opponent scores more. And we're going to take a look specifically at Rocco. Big point of contention right now across Iowa State fandom. So we're going to do that. And then in the third segment, I kind of wanted to take a look at two specific things. I've got 5-0 to 5-4 written on the board. We're going to take a look at, is this who this team is? Have they had some fluky losses? Where is this team at specifically? But also I wanted to address some of the comments that are being made by Cyclone fans across the internet, across what I heard leaving the stadium, yada, yada, yada. I think that's important. So stick around for that because it's getting gnarly out there, to say the least. Before we get that far, though, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. First place of business, all right? The first thing I want to say today, sounds like Bramer is good, was discharged from the hospital, and I just hope, obviously, speedy recovery, was discharged. That's good. I hope he's feeling the best that he can. But that, just wanted to get that out of the way. That was obviously a very scary situation, and it sounds like at least good news from what I have heard. So I wanted to start with that. All right, now let's take a look specifically, or I guess not specifically, generally at the loss that Iowa State took this last weekend to Arizona State, 24-19. I will say, I was in the stadium. It was cold. It was rainy. It was an ugly game. It was not your flashy, SEC type game, whatever. This one was much closer to a Big Ten slugfest, which was crazy. It was a very weird experience to witness. And especially with the weather going, just overcast to some sprinkles to sun to pouring to sun to just overcast to cold to rainy. It was all over the place. And I think that did impact the field, the product we saw on the field. I wanted to get that out of the way because I heard a lot of people talking about, this is too many drops. Like this is unacceptable. And I'm not excusing the drops because I do understand on some level that it's not quote unquote, it's like their job, right? Like it's what we're asking them to do. It's for those receivers, kind of the main thing that they have to focus on. On some level, catching the ball is very fundamental to their position, right? I understand that. But that doesn't make it any easier when it's freezing cold and raining, right? I get it. I just wanted to clear that up because I feel like some people assume, well, if it's their job, it's no problem then, right? When it's cold and rainy. I don't know how many balls I could have caught. And I'm not on the team. Like, I get it. That's the other side of that coin. But man, it was a difficult environment to be passing. And I think that was reflected in the box score. I have 13-24 for Jeff Sims, 18-36 for Rocco Becht. And we'll unpack kind of Rocco in the second segment a little bit more. But boy, it just was not a huge passing day. And Arizona State was able to figure that out more so in the second half. And we'll get into that in a second. But the first half of this one was much more exciting. 16-17 was the score going into halftime. And the last, 4 minutes or whatever it was of the first half was really where Iowa State showed up and where Iowa State really played well. A fumble and a pick was actually what it was. And Iowa State had a chance to walk away with an extra 9 points, up to 10 points, if you want to count the potential PAT situation, whatever was going on there. So up to 10 points in the last 3 minutes of the first half. That was probably Iowa State's brightest point in this game. Then in the second half, things did not go to plan. All right. Like I said, the score at half was 16-17. The final score, 19-24. That means a total of 10 points were scored in the second half. The whole second half was kind of just a cardio fest because Iowa State only got a field goal up and Arizona State essentially had one play, one 88-yard touchdown run. That was the entire second half. I get it. Obviously, there's tons of plays in there, this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, there was 2 scoring plays in the entire second half of football. Arizona State just so happened to break off an 88-yarder. And we'll talk about the defense a little bit right now, I think, because we'll get into offense in a second. I don't have the answer. I am not a defensive coordinator. But what we're doing just isn't really working. On some level, something has to change. Now, I will say Iowa State gave up, like I said, just basically the one play in the entire second half. 127 yards is what I have written down here. And it does become the offense has to do something. We'll talk about that in the second segment. But still, you gave up 228 yards to Jeff Sims. Now, that's basically where all of the offensive production came from, essentially, right? 177 yards through the air, 290 total yards on the ground. Raleek Brown added 64 of his own. But really, it was pretty much Jeff Sims. It pretty much was. He threw for 177. Kudos. Number 7, Metayer. Number 7 had 68 yards. Okay. Jalen Moss had 52, and Malik McClain, had 49. So those 3 guys contributed receiving. But for the most part, it was Jeff Sims. And I can see both sides of this because when you look at just the raw numbers, like 127 yards total in the second half, or I think it's maybe like 130 because there's a 3-yard pass in there somewhere. If you give up 130 yards and 7 points and a half of football, that's pretty good. I mean, that is relatively successful. But then you have to look beyond the numbers and realize that it was literally every single play was basically a direct snap to a running back. I mean, if they are doing absolutely nothing else, you have to, in my opinion, you have to find a way to stop that a little bit faster. There is no reason that Iowa State shouldn't have forced Arizona State to either throw or just go 3 and out every single drive. In my opinion. Now, I'm not a defensive coordinator. I understand that. But if you know what's coming, you know what's coming. I believe, if my count is correct, and I will have a more in-depth breakdown of what happened on Saturday tomorrow. So come back tomorrow for that. But if my initial scan is correct, Arizona State completed 1 pass in the second half. 1 3-yard pass. And I get it. At some point, you have to defend it. But it wasn't like Arizona State was like making it really work. And most of their production was coming on the ground, but they were trying through the air too. It was very obvious. 228 yards from their quarterback. 228 yards. So, look, I am going to sit here and tell you the defense played okay. The defense is not necessarily the reason that Iowa State lost, okay? You still held Arizona State to 24 points. It was really one play that got them to 24, right? 88-yard run, a missed tackle. I don't necessarily agree with the defensive scheme that we ran there. It is what it is, right? If you ignore those 88 yards, they gave up 127 total in the second half. I should caveat that. I took out the 88-yard run because I was like, outside of that play, they really didn't give up anything. That's good. Just wasn't quite enough. And I think if you look beyond the actual numbers and realize what Arizona State was doing, at some point you have to realize like this defense needs to be able to force more 3 and outs if that's what they're going to do. If they're literally doing the same thing, basically the exact same thing over and over, you just have to stop them faster. And if the offense needs that much help, that's where you're at, right? That's what it needs to happen because at the end of the day, they didn't get it done. They just didn't do enough. That was basically my sentiment after the game. This team just didn't get enough. They didn't do enough in this game. Defensively, I could see it both ways if you said they did enough or if they didn't, but I don't think there's a question. Offensively, Iowa State struggled big time against Arizona State. We'll talk about that coming up right here after this. College football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw some amazing deals. Honestly, my favorite feature, I've said this before, is the fact that I can see my exact view from my seat before buying. Okay, I don't do so great with the maps, with the what it's like just a drawing. I want to see what I actually am going to be seeing when I'm sitting in that seat. Game Time makes that super simple. It's really faster, it's cheaper, it's less stressful than any other way that I have bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download your Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. So the defense, I wouldn't be upset if you said that the defense did enough to beat Arizona State. I genuinely wouldn't. Here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I can see where someone would say, aside from one play in the second half, holding a team to 127 yards. You don't even give them the 7 points if you take out that one play. That's a pretty good half of football. I could also see the people that say, well, they did the exact same thing every single time they had the ball, so why aren't we getting more stops? Why aren't we stopping them faster? Those people I would also – I can agree with you there. Okay, I think I can agree with everybody in what your opinion is of the defense, honestly. And there could be tons of different opinions. Offensively, though, I think we all probably have the same opinion and agree this offense didn't do enough against Arizona State. 19 points is just not going to win you a whole lot of football games. It'll win you some. Obviously, they beat Iowa, score of 16-13, but it's just not enough in every single game, right? And against Arizona State, it wasn't. Rocco Becht, 18-36, 186 yards through the air, a touchdown, and an interception. On the ground, Rocco went 8 rushes for 6 yards and a touchdown as well. It's not really a super worthy stat line, but obviously the rushing touchdown, I want to bring that up. And we're going to talk about this a little bit in the third segment, but there is a lot of noise right now around Rocco Becht because we have not seen Rocco Becht play well the last few weeks. And against Arizona State was no different. Balls off the mark, decisions that I just didn't think were very good. Admittedly, I'm not the man in the arena, right? I understand that. Admittedly, I don't know exactly what the offensive scheme is. Admittedly, I don't know what the grade progression is supposed to be. Okay. I understand that. But from where I was sitting, it's like, well, okay. Feel like we probably should have had that one. And really, what I want to say on that is I don't think Rocco is the problem here. Rocco is 100%, in my opinion, he needs to play better. In my opinion, to finish that sentence perfectly, is expected to play better. He needs to. He needs to put his balls a little bit more on target. He needs to make his reads a little faster, yada, yada, yada. I think we can all agree on that. But what I want to say is I don't think if we switch out Rocco Becht, that this is a totally different, like we all of a sudden win these 4 games. I don't think that's the case. Obviously threw 1 interception, yes, but he's not out there throwing 4 or 5 interceptions. He's not fumbling the ball a ton. Like Jeff Sims had 3 turnovers in himself. So I understand he ran for 228 and threw for 177, had a ridiculous day. He still had 3 turnovers. If Rocco Becht had the same stat line he did, but with 3 turnovers, that would be a totally different conversation. He's not necessarily putting the ball in harm's way. I honestly think a lot more of the problem comes down to the play calling. Okay. And I'm not necessarily calling for Mauser's job here, but you've got to figure it out. Something has to change. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And against Arizona State, it was just like, it really just looked like everyone was kind of just out there to be out there. And the play calling, I think, reflected that. We had some really good play calls. We really did. And honestly, the run game was pretty solid. It's honestly not that perfect when you look at the total for the day, 32 carries for 150. Carson Hansen, though, had 18 for 113. I thought they were running the ball well. I thought they were getting time in the pocket. I just didn't think the play calls that Mauser was making were good. Honestly, the sprint out that was the touchdown that Rocco Becht ran in. You know how I feel about sprint outs. Why are we running sprint outs? It feels like they're a successful play 10% of the time. I don't know if it's this team. I don't know if it's how they're being coached. I don't know if they're giving something away that's telling the defense what's going to happen. Iowa State is not successful on sprint outs, and we always run them on like 3rd and 5, 2nd and mid, which 2nd down's okay because at least you have another play. 3rd or 4th down, sprint outs, stop doing that. It's a problem. Can't have that. And it's at this point, the mountain of evidence that shows that Iowa State struggles to run the sprint out effectively it's becoming annoying that we're still running this sprint out. Nonetheless, Iowa State scores on that sprint out. It is what it is. But the rest of the red zone situations that Iowa State was in, or relatively close to field goal range situations that Iowa State was in, it did not feel like we were calling plays that were conducive to scoring or to moving the ball forward. It really just kind of felt like we were picking plays at random. Honestly, it got a couple of the plays, I was like, that's what we're choosing to run? Like, how did you come to that conclusion? How did you decide that was the play that you think is the best in this situation? I'm not an OC, just like I'm not a DC, okay? I sit here with a microphone and I speak into it. I understand where I'm at, what my role is. But as my role of someone who's supposed to have an opinion, the offensive play calling is terrible. I will say it. Now, that being said, a lot of the time it's okay. And I think that that's what has a lot of people confused is how can it look so good, but then when we get into any situation, it's terrible. And I guess at this point, I'm starting to lump that in. Before I would have said like, look, 99% of the play calls, good. We just got to clean up those, those 1, 2, 3 play calls, whatever it is. Those were bad, but if we can just switch those into good play calls, perfect game, right? Perfect game. Now I'm starting to look at it like it's just a whole body of work. It is. And we can't be having those problems. It's bad play calling if when you need a good play to run, if you're calling bad play calls. Now I'm just looking at it like that's just a part of the job. It's no longer like, okay, you made one bad play call. You made 3, 4 bad play calls. If every time the bad play calls are coming in an area of the field or a specific area of the field or a specific time, specific down, whatever it is, it's a pattern and it's a problem. So yeah, Rocco needs to play better. I completely agree with everyone who says online Rocco is, not performing to the level he needs to be. That's fair. You can have that opinion. But I think the bigger elephant in the room, the bigger problem that Iowa State needs to address is the play calling just isn't there. The play calling, decision making, what are we doing? I mean, way too many times am I looking at someone going, what was that? That's what we chose to run. That was what we chose to do. A sprint out. And that, so many times it's the sprint out. That's the one that gets me. That's the one that really irritates me. Or why are we quick pass on the 2-yard line? Feels like that's another one, but it's not a sprint out. At least it wasn't a sprint out. God, those sprint outs, they really get me, man. They really are annoying. I don't know why we run those. What do you think of the sprint out? I want to know. Let me know at Nick_Marv on Twitter or in the comments down below. All right, let's pivot to this team as a whole. What's going on with this Iowa State team? They're now 5-4 after starting the season 5-0. It's gotten ugly. We'll take a closer look coming up right here after this. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Iowa State goes from 5-0 to start the season to 5-4 now, 4 games later. It's gotten ugly, and we have been here every step of the way here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to every single one of you guys who listen every single day. You're the ones that help make this world go around. What's happened to Iowa State? Started the season so well. I mean, obviously the win over Kansas State in Dublin, vibes were high. Vibes were so high. And then a dominant win over South Dakota. Honestly, up until the win over Iowa, I didn't really have much of a concern, right? Genuinely, pretty good start. I mean, you beat Kansas State, and there was a lot of questioning. Obviously, it was an ugly win, but I pretty much chalked all that up to the rain. South Dakota, dominant win over what was supposed to be a pretty good FCS program. And then the Cyhawk game, yeah, it was ugly. It was 16-13, but it's a Cyhawk game. Like, that's what happens in Cyhawk games. It was questionable. The win over Arkansas State was when I think a lot of people started to have some questions. It was ugly, but hey, it's the end of that 4-game stretch. You're on the road, blah, blah, blah. There's an answer. Arizona, big win, yes, but at this point, we knew we were missing some players. And against Cincinnati, I don't know if the term "the wheels fell off" is a strong enough saying for what happened to Iowa State football after that. Tough loss to Cincinnati, tough loss to Colorado, tough loss to BYU, and then honestly a tough loss to Arizona State. And so now they're 5-4, these Iowa State Cyclones that we all know and love. And the question is this a 5-4 team? And if so, well, I guess the answer, yes, they are a 5-4 team. But I mean it more so, are they like a 5-0 or an 0-4 team? That's a better way to phrase it. They're 5-4, but are they 5-0 or are they 0-4? It's not, ignore the records. What type of product are they putting out there on the field right now? And I am tempted to say that they're closer to a 5-0 team. I'm tempted to say that, but I just can't. I just can't. Now, the question is why? Well, the reason I'm leaning, I just want to say that they're 5-0 is because it's an 8-point loss to Cincinnati. It's a 7-point loss to Colorado, and it's a 5-point loss? 5-point loss to Arizona State. And the BYU game kind of just got out of hand late. So really, you've got 3 one-score losses, and honestly, against BYU, it should have been probably a one-score loss as well. The wheels fell off of that one as well, specifically that game. So you kind of have 4 one-score losses, and I can see that. But also, the reason you lost all 4 of those games, it was ugly. The Cincinnati game, I came on here and said, I don't know if I have ever seen Iowa State play a worse game of football. And I think one of the best ways for me to kind of say that now is, at the time, we thought this team was so capable of this, and they put out this. That was the disparity between what I thought they could do and what they did was the biggest problem. Okay, I'm sure some of you longtime Iowa State fans are able to easily recall, well, this game they played worse. Okay, but what were the expectations in that game, right? Were they, kind of where Oklahoma State is now? And honestly, I guess Iowa State's kind of in that book with the whole guys with their shirts off, which shout out to them for doing over a quarter in the rain, in the cold. But that's kind of where Iowa State's at as a program. So but in the Cincinnati game, the expectations were higher, and they didn't perform to that. And then against Colorado, they performed very terribly, somehow kept themselves in the game. And I mean, just look at what Colorado's done. Look at what Colorado has done the rest of the season. That's your answer for why I can't give them the benefit of the doubt. Before the Iowa State game, they lost to BYU, they lost to TCU. Then they beat Iowa State, but they lost 53-7 to Utah, and they lost 52-17 to Arizona last weekend. Colorado is not a good team. You didn't lose a close one to a good team. You lost to a bad team. Then to BYU, you were really close in that one. The first half was so perfect. And I came in here and I said, I've never seen a team fall off harder. They couldn't hold it. They couldn't keep up whatever they were doing in the first half in the second, and they fell completely apart. 41-27 final there. And against Arizona State, honestly, Something's off. I don't know what it is. Like I said, weird box score, right? Aside from one play in the second half, they gave up 127 yards defensively. If you add that 88 on, it's like 210-ish or whatever. I'm not doing the math right now. 210 and a touchdown. Still not even that bad. Like, genuinely, it's obviously not ideal, but not bad. And when one play equates for or results is the reason for 88 of those yards and a touchdown, not a bad play defensively. But then you think about almost every single one of those yards came from one guy, and they basically ran the same play, not obviously the exact same, but basically the same play over and over. How'd you give up 120? Why didn't you give up like 50? That's the thing with this team is it feels like they're performing okay. They're doing all right, but all right just isn't enough. Right? They just it's also swings. So against Cincinnati, first half terrible, second half good, just not, it's too little, it's too late. Against Colorado, good first half, terrible second half. BYU, good first half, terrible second half. Honestly, against Arizona State, it's kind of like that's the one that's the most not split. This team is I honestly don't know what it is, right? And everyone wants to talk about injuries, to the secondary that Iowa State sustained. And that's valid. They certainly have. Like, you probably give up less points in a lot of these games if you have a better defense. But what's going on the offense? You missed Carson Hansen for a game. Or I think it was just the one game. But other than that, you've scored 19, 27, 17, and 30 in your last four. I don't know, man. Sometimes you just have to score more points than the other team. Sometimes it just comes down to winning games. And this, whatever that gene is, this team doesn't have it. They don't have it. They don't have that killer instinct in these last four games. First five, felt like they had it. Felt like they had whatever it was that defines a team as a killer instinct team. As a team that, not necessarily one that'll step on the throat, but will get it done in the last few minutes. The Iowa State has not had that. They've gotten a little bit of help even in some of these games, namely Cincinnati and Colorado. And the conversation around the refs and BYU is an interesting one. And I thought Arizona State shot themselves in the foot early, and you still could not do enough. Whatever enough is, whatever the situation that Iowa State's presented with, they're coming up short every time. So they are a lot closer to an 0-4 team right now. Do they have the potential to be a 5-0 team? Yeah, I think they do. But a lot needs to change. At this point, I am no longer in the boat of like, we're like a move away. We're so close. We're in the details. We're not. You don't lose 4 in a row if you're in the details. I get that 3 of them are one-score games, technically. I get that. But the way those games played out, Iowa State's not in the details anymore, man. Iowa State's closer to an 0-4 team than they are to a 5-0 team. And they can make changes. They've got 3 games left. They can do something about it. Taylor Mauser and John Hancock can sit down during the bye week after TCU and say, what are we doing? And what has worked? What isn't working now? What are we doing? How can we change this? That can all happen. It's not the offseason yet. Season's not over, right? Iowa State can still finish the year 8-4. But something has to change. If something does not change, and I've said this today, and I've said this before, if something doesn't change, nothing changes, right? Iowa State's 0-4 in their last 4. If nothing changes, they will finish the year 0-7. Something's got to change. Either somebody plays differently, something is called differently, something has to be different. I don't know what the answer is. That's why I'm not the head coach. But something has to be different. What would you change? Let me know in the comments below or at Nick_Marv on Twitter. Iowa State, 5-0 to start the year. 5-4 now. 4-0 in their last, or 4-0 in giving the other team a win in their last 4, I guess. There's that. Let me know what you think of this Iowa State team right now. Crazy spot for them to be in. Crazy spot. At Nick_Marv or comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching to this point. You guys are the best. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.